Hey, Wealth Warriors. Are you ready to redefine wealth and master your money mindset? Welcome to Women of Wealth. I'm your Gen X host, Hollywoods Gray. Today, our millennial host, Ali Ramo, is not available, so it'll be just me and our guest, Jena Loren. Jena helps high-achieving leaders, entrepreneurs, day traders, celebrities, CEOs, and growth-minded individuals navigate their high-stakes world and get radically brave. Her work centers around helping women identify and dismantle the unconscious survival patterns tied to their Ego Archetype. Let's dive in and find out exactly what that means. Jena, thanks so much for being on our show.
I'm so blessed. Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. This is great. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you as well. All right, well, let's get started with your story. Let's hear a little bit about what led you to helping people in this work and become brave.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'll have to say my bravest moment, the origin of brave, like that I really tap into is when I had to move out of my home at 14 years old. So it's been a lifetime of really taking the courage and resilience and the like go get them kind of attitude to get to where I am. But I will say a big piece of that story is I learned how to cope. I learned how to navigate struggle and hardships and turbulence, and so I don't regret or resent any part of my upbringing. It was definitely riddled with a lot of challenges and contrast, as I call it today. Back then, it was like, what the heck is all this crap that's in my life? But now I'm like, no, it's a blessing. But yeah, so my brave really started early, but I will tell you, it came from a lot of survival ego. And I think a lot of us are in that space. You know, we have our challenges, and we have, whether it's early in life or later in life, our ego is there to protect us. And that's what I came to realize, is that, you know, the part of me that is trying to keep me safe and keep me in a comfort level is how I cope, you know, right? And so we build these unconscious protective coping mechanisms so often that that's what I did. And so up until about 35 years old, like my first half of my life, I was pretty much in survival mode, very much a lot of ego. There was a lot of negativity and a lot of struggle of like just getting to where I wanted to go. And with that, I also built a machine in myself, right? A mechanism where I would drive myself, right? And so anybody on here that's in the high stake worlds or building wealth or wanting to, like, you know, be in that masculine energy of driven, I was that. And then in 2018, I crashed and burned. So 2018, I call it more of a spiritual breakdown that led to a next level spiritual breakthrough. But basically, the hustle and the grind and the masculine way that I was doing life had to stop. It just wasn't working anymore. And so from that, I was a business strategist. I worked in corporate America. I have all kinds of experiences, from fashion design and makeup artistry to controller, right? I was a controller for about 8 years. Then I jumped into entrepreneur. I did the business strategy. I did the brand strategy. I did all these things because I was very good at skills. But throughout all of it, I was actually in the background learning and teaching and healing through transformational work, psychology, and mindset, manifestation, and emotional work as well, emotional mastery. And so that became the awareness. My awareness and consciousness grew inside of that container. And yet I was still running businesses based on some of the skills that I had, right? Built on the get-go and, you know, survival process. So ultimately in 2018, it just didn't work anymore. And so instead of like shutting down a business, I just redirected my business. And so Brave Masters was my company. It's still my company name, but just this year, with some additional identity shifting, and my world has changed again in the last couple of years. I rebranded to Jena Loren, and I changed my name, right? So after uncoupling from a 22-year marriage. And And so I say all that, it's like, it's my first half. I feel like my first half of my life was one particular way and very, very egoic. And then I started to recognize and build the frameworks that I use now, where I can quickly see when I'm coming from ego instead of my essence. And that's what I moved into in 2018, 2019. And that's when I actually moved to California, where you and I met.
Yeah.
And because of that shift, I started exploring more in my business and helping people transform from a place of self-awareness and raising their consciousness to understand why they do what they do. And I think that's part of my mission. Is I'm really, really good at reading patterns and human patterns. And I'm also a day trader, by the way, so I read those patterns too. But it's really hearing behind people's words is kind of the gift, I suppose. And because of that, I started to lean into this work and mindset and emotional mastery, et cetera, to really just break people open and help them get their shift straight. So
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I feel like there's so much to unpack there.
yeah, probably so.
Definitely for women. I mean, I'm sure a lot of women can identify with the fact of just getting stuff done and
Yeah,
kind of taking care of ourselves last, especially
right.
when we have a family. So like I have to make a conscious effort to do that, because me solving problems and fixing things and like getting dinner on the table, or, being like superwoman is
Yes.
very much a natural spot for me. So I have to make sure that I, put in the time, energy that it takes to also take care of myself. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think I'm too good at it. Like when my son's like, "You're traveling again this weekend." Yes, son, I'm going to watch volleyball,
Yes, I am.
So anyway, let's
Right.
talk a little bit more about how you help women release shame and reclaim their power. What are some of the most common limiting beliefs that you see holding women back from their potential?
Yeah, I think because I've been there as well, and maybe you've experienced some of this. I think a lot of shame is very much hidden inside of like a justification. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times, shame is like kind of the lowest level of the emotional scale, and it's built upon this either unconscious or conscious self-abandonment. And when we are conditioned, especially in our childhood, and we're like, you've got to go to school and you got to get good grades and you got to do it this way and you got to follow the rules and you got to and you also have to nurture and you also have to take care of the others and you got to take care of things. It's like it becomes this like hidden experience where I just keep giving myself up. I keep compromising myself, and then there's a shame that can exist behind that. And I always say that guilt is a slippery slope into shame. And so guilt for me is I always give it a definition. Guilt is simply the ego saying, if I can feel bad enough, then I don't have to take ownership. And so I think that's a big piece of where women, we put so much on our plate that we don't stop to give ourselves permission to want it to be different, to want something else, to have something different, because of all the things that we're either shaming ourselves about unconsciously, or all the programs and conditions that we put on us that said we can't do that and we have to do it this way and we have to take care of everybody else first. Even as a driven business owners like we are, there's somewhere behind the scenes that says that's how we're going to get it done, is we're going to push harder instead of flow easier. And so there's the shame, I think a lot of times is built upon the self-betrayal. And when we don't realize we're actually betraying ourselves, or we're leaving ourselves behind a little bit, even micro moments where we're not really listening to what we want, and we're giving into like, what do you want for dinner? Well, where's our decision, right? So little things, right? But it can add up and accumulate, and over years of time, I think the shame gets kind of buried, and then it kind of stifles our potential. It stifles some of the bigger things that we want to create, because our identity then becomes a part of that. Right? We start to create an identity that says, oh, this is who I am, and this is how far I can go. Or if I go farther, I have to give something up. I have to lose something. And I think that's also a big trap. I call it an ego trap, where we sacrifice either ourselves or our desires or our dreams or whatever it is, the money, the relationship, for the sake of feeling, safe and responsible for others. And I think that's a fine line that we walk. And so that's where I truly like to help people unpack what's behind the words, what's behind the action. I'm always looking at humans and going, why do we do what we're doing? Why are we doing it? Yeah. Because it's either coming from ego or it's coming from essence. And if you can just start asking yourself that question, like, where am I coming from? You'll start to realize you're either listening to a voice that's separate from you, or you're listening to your intuition and the guidance from source. I subscribe to GUS, God, Universe, Source. That's what I call it. And so whatever you subscribe to, that's fine. But Gus is my support. Gus is who I am. And so many times I'm separated from that, listening to an ego voice. And that's the practice. So I want to always find out, where are you coming from in the actions that you're taking? And especially highly ambitious, driven women, and we can relate, right? And it's like, and some of those higher risk, higher stake environments, especially if there's a lot of masculine energy inside those environments, right? And day trading, for instance, like on the side over here, that's a highly male dominated, not always, I mean, and it shows up as more masculine driven. And you live in a world as well, right? There's a lot of men, and please keep in mind, I think we all have to remember this: masculine doesn't mean male, right? It's an energetic yin and yang kind of experience, right? And so balancing out the feminine, where it's receive and allow and flow, and that is also for all humans, right? And then the masculine is the doing. But I think we need to start recognizing, why are we doing what we're doing? Because we're either coming from a wounded masculine, or we're coming from an aligned masculine with our higher self. So that's what I help people do, as far as, helping women really unpack the shame so that it doesn't have to exist anymore, and then step into their fullest potential.
Yeah. And I think what people don't really understand, a lot of women don't understand, is that, we have both. It's biology. It's not just emotional. It's also biology, right? The way we were created is for us to have feminine energy and masculine energy. And the feminine energy, when we were like cave women, used to keep us safe. And so we have to learn how to work with that diffuse awareness that we have, and how we're able to, manage that. But also we have to learn and be able to not be in a masculine mode. I think one of the most powerful things that I did before I got married, so it's been over 18 years ago, is I did this work with Allison Armstrong, and it was celebrating men, satisfying women. Basically, if the men felt more celebrated, we would be more satisfied in our life. And then how to do that without giving up your power, like surrendering. Right. A lot of people think surrendering or like being submissive or whatever in a relationship might be weak, but there is a power behind that if you're on an equal playing field. So I think that, the masculine energy, I like what you said about masculine is the doing. Absolutely. And I wrote down so many notes. This is kind of off my script, but can you talk a little bit about how forgiveness plays into your process?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. So, I think forgiveness is, it's a little bit, there's a concept that we need to forgive ourselves. Right. And so, or forgive others. And I think that in itself tells you that there's some kind of form of separation, that we're not already fine and whole and perfect the way we are. However, as a human experience, I do believe forgiveness is a place of saying, if I was more aware, if my awareness and consciousness was at a different level, would I have done the same thing that I chose prior? Right. And so it's like forgiving yourself for choosing what you choose, being who you might be, based on past conditioning and, choices you've made. I think it's just first, it's a forgiveness for self. It's allowing yourself to be human and move through the different levels of ascension. And then when really forgiving others, I think is honestly about forgiving self first, because if we're trying to forgive others, then we're holding them as like right or wrong or black or white, like some kind of duality. Right. And so if we can forgive ourselves for holding a perspective that requires somebody else to be forgiven, and then there's still a part of us that's still being separated from our essence. So So it's for me, it's like, I know everybody says that, oh, you need to forgive yourself and forgive others and, but I think it's just a practice of coming back to who you are, which doesn't need forgiveness, right? It's not required, but it is a human experience that says, what am I allowing myself to be? And I can allow myself to trust and know that everything I've chosen up to this point, whether I would do that now based on the awareness and consciousness I have today, then, I probably would have chosen something different. But it's really neutralizing it. I think it's about neutrality. It's like, we don't have to forgive just because we're judging something as bad or wrong. Right. I want to come back to, like, you did what you did because it is what it is, and it was what it was, and it's neutral. It has no meaning until we give it meaning.
Right.
So
but I think, don't you think a lot of people give things meaning, like, especially in their past, like with their parents and stuff like that, and then they're 55 years later, still being victim to the fact that their dad was crappy or whatever. It's like, let's just, have the awareness that maybe they were doing the best that they could do with the tools and resources they had. And, I don't know if it's forgiveness necessarily, but how do we move on from that so that we're not being victim to it, 50 years later?
Yeah. And I would say a big piece of that is identity work. It's actually shifting the identity that says I'm still the wounded child of the parent or of the circumstances or of the whatever, because we're just perpetuating the identity that exists. And so for me, like, I have all that, like, I have plenty of that, and I've done a lot of work around that. And so it's a decision. It's a decision that says I no longer wish to identify as the person that has these wounded experiences. They were what they were, and they guided us to where we are today, so we can be grateful for them. And I think maybe on the flip side of forgiveness is just gratitude.
Right.
Like, just be grateful for all of it. Be grateful for dad and the experience that it presented. And this is the other, like, deeper cut, is I do believe, and especially at this, my current level of understanding, is that everything we experience, including the parents, including the life that we have as children, young adults, etc., and now adults, is a reflection of us. It's I believe we create our reality, and a big piece of our reality comes from, like, our mind and our thoughts and our beliefs and our knowing. And when that is reflected out in front of us, then that's simply an aspect of self. So it's like me looking back at the hardships I had in childhood. I mean, I had the divorce, there was domestic violence with one of the boyfriends my mom had. Like, there was definitely contrast. And if we can hold it, if at 55 years old or whatever, however old you are, it's like, if we can hold it as just simply contrast and the reflection of that contrast, right? Or we live in a duality world, then we don't actually hold the energy of the meaning anymore. Like, it's letting go of that. And that's how I think we crack that code of letting go of things and stop blaming dad and mom and, and just say, oh, well, what if they're reflections of me? Well, then who are we really blaming? Right. Yeah. And then the self-forgiveness comes in. So, so it's a process.
So let's talk a little bit about the work that you do with the ego, the egoic archetype. What is that, and how is it silently running the show in our lives and in our businesses?
Oh, for sure. So a couple years ago, I mean, and this is a combination, I give credit to, like, I've done a lot of transformational work and read a lot and studied a lot and all of this, but there was just this moment where I just wrote these behavior patterns on a piece of paper, and 15 ego tricks came into my world. Like, just clarity, like, oh, that's what they're called, like, I called them something. And so then about, I don't know, maybe 6 months after that, I woke up on a Saturday morning and the word archetype came in, and I was like, well, what is that? What am I doing with archetypes? And what I found was 4 egoic archetypes exist that kind of you can group some of the ego tricks into. Okay. So the 15 fit within these 4 archetypes. So what I have found human behavior wise and ego behavior is that there's predominantly 15 ways that we cope with something in some way. And then the 4 archetypes are kind of a family of each. And so there's the rebel, the realist, the illusionist, the martyr, right? And when I saw these, I was like, interesting. I'm like, well, which one am I predominantly? Because you use them all. but I'm predominantly the realist. And then secondary is the rebel. I don't fall too much into the illusionist. Sometimes fear still shows itself. But then I kind of I move from fear pretty quickly over to realist. So they dance with each other, really interesting. But and then the martyr is someone that's going to like really internalize and blame themselves, guilt themselves, shame themselves, right? And so and it's the people pleaser. And so when I saw these archetypes, I created a quiz. I created an assessment that and everybody can have one, have access to it. And over 1,500 people have taken it just to identify what is my predominant coping mechanism, what is my egoic archetype that's running the show. And when it runs the show, you are cutting off and sacrificing and blocking the potentiality of the magic to occur. Like if you want $1 million business or you want $1 million life, but you're running off of ego, the ego is limitation. The ego only sees what it can prove. It only sees what it knows. It only sees what it can manage. It only sees what it can control, right? So I'm a recovering control freak. And so it's like, if I can't see where the money's coming from, then how am I going to trust that I'm a millionaire when I don't see it? Right. And so how we break through that is we actually have to heal whatever's underneath the ego trick. The egoic archetypes and the tricks are not the actual source of the belief system. It's actually the signal. It's a hello, pay attention. And that's why I made them, is like, oh, I can catch my ego really quick on a daily basis. I can see it, right? And first step is awareness. If you don't even know you're running off of ego, then you can't change it, right? So once I started to see the ego tricks and the archetypes come in, then I was able to understand that what's actually available is the detachment method, which is what I actually walk people through. And it's that 7-step process of helping people detach from the attachment that's actually creating the egoic archetypes. So I believe everything we struggle with, everything we block ourselves from manifesting, distills down to 2 things: attachments and self-compromise or self-abandonment. And so if we can get to that source, but if we don't know that we have something going on, then obviously how do we resolve it? And so it's like uncover, discover, resolve. And we first have to get clear that we even have ego going on for us. And then from that egoic awareness, then we can start to unpack the resistance, identify the attachments, and move into an allowance and a surrender and an experience of a release, of an emotional, energetic release that then moves us into a whole new identity. And that's, like, in a nutshell, kind of the process that we go through in my high level coaching. But it is a magical process to see people break through when they actually get underneath the coping mechanism that's going on for them, or the ego trick, and be able, because it's like you can witness it. It's like if you hear yourself saying I can't, or I should, or I'm disappointed, or I need to do this, all of that's an ego trick, every single one of them. And so I hear people, right? I hear, and I'm listening, and I'm watching and observing, and I can probably catch like 4 ego tricks just in one conversation. And there's nothing bad or wrong about it, but it's like just an awareness, right? You turn on the radar, you start seeing it all. And that's what happened, is like when I created them, I was like, wow, this makes it really easy. I love making things easy, first of all, especially in our intangible transformational life, right? Like how do we do this work and make it simple? And that's what came through was, okay, these are very fast ways to catch who you're being, and be able to then start to take some ownership. I always say radical ownership is how you start to shift some of this. And that's where the process and the method started to show itself.
That's fascinating. So I used to work for this personal and professional leadership company called PSI Seminars. And I used to be responsible for the advanced classes. And, you could see people's programs, their unconscious bias, like everything would show up, as well as my own. So it was like the best growth experience of my life was working for this company, because I was held accountable. We had like for the 90-day goal setting program, they have but can't try. And I think they've added hope or wish to it. Our words you can't say. Those are like money words. You have to pay for those if you say them, like when you're on a coach call or something like that. So it's like, it kind of all works together, but it's just interesting to see the different types of behaviors, especially because like as a high achieving woman, that feels stuck. Sometimes women can feel stuck, but they keep doing it anyway. And some of those women are women that have done a lot of, internal work, or so they think they've done a lot of internal work. How do you work with those women who, they just are kind of like, I've done all this before and, I'm just looking for the answer. Jena, just give me the answer.
Wouldn't that be nice, right? Yes. Give me $1 million for one answer. I will say I can shift somebody pretty quickly in about 15 minutes, but my little 15-minute love seats. But I will say this. I am one of those women, right? I've done a lot of work since like young age. And I have, from a spiritual place, from like really looking at the ascension of consciousness, I believe that we're living in a parallel universe, like now moment. So I'm going to get a little like, spiritual on you here, but basically I look at it as like we're on the elevator of ascension at any given moment in our life. And you are graduating to the next level of ascension over time. But if there's a pattern that's staying the same, that means that we haven't shifted something in our unconscious that says, I need to keep this pattern going. I treat it like, at level 3, I loaded and installed these programs, whatever those programs are, whatever those patterns are. And then in order to move to 4, like go up the elevator and hit the next level, next timeline, then I released some of those programs and I had a 2.0 upgrade or whatever the number is.
Right.
And so if you're sitting here at level, let's say we're all at like high achieving women that's done the work, they're all at level 7 or something like that. There is still something more to be learned, to be released, to be resolved, or you would be at 8. Like we'd have what we want to have. And I think another piece of this is sometimes I think stuck is also, especially when we're high achieving, is are we actually like, have we gotten to where we said we wanted to get? And now we're kind of like, oh, where else do we go? Like, what's the next level? Because there's always another level. Because, I just, that's what I believe anyway. Like, I think there's always more that we can create, we can imagine, we can manifest, we can show up for. But if we've been in a particular level for a length of time, or a pattern has been repeated for so long, and we're sitting at the intersection, I call it the pattern intersection. It's like, we're sitting here and it's like, what else do? I don't know how to turn left or right because I don't know anything different than the pattern I've been living. And so I keep going straight. And that's the rub, is that we've got to actually do something in that intersection, which I believe is the identity work. I call it finding your it factor, like your intentional timeline, your identity timeline intentionally, like thinking through it, is going, what is my identity and the timeline that I want to exist on now? And giving yourself permission, being willing to face the things that you have not yet faced, being willing to actually let go of things that are just out of alignment, even if it's ever so slightly. Like, it's almost like as we ascend, we get pretty smart, and the ego gets smarter, right? We educate the ego. So the ego's like, I got this. I've done 30 years of work. I know what I'm doing. Right. I'm like, which voice do you think that's coming from?
That's like, I arrived voice.
Yeah. So I'm like, just be a little more humble about like, well, what if there's more, right? What if the infinite intelligence actually does have more to say? And our ego is still the limitation of I'm done, because I don't personally believe I'm ever done. Right. And so for those women, I would just say, what are you actually giving up, and what are you actually not stepping into, and what else do you want? And have you given yourself permission fully to have everything you want? Like, how big can you actually dream? And what are we doing to get there? And when somebody's like at this level and they want 100 million, like whatever the next level is, it could be money, it could be relationship status, it could be, job, career, whatever. Well, okay. If you're here on this timeline, your identity is set here, your frequency. Well, now we got to break open and crack open what's happening that's keeping you from being the next identity. And so there's always like a what is it, like a new devil, what was that saying? New problem, new devil. I don't know, whatever the
Yeah,
saying
something
is,
like that. Yes.
something like that. But yes, I think it's one, getting a little more humble with self, that says there's always more to learn. I am a student of life for life, and there's something more to unravel, or I would not feel stuck. And I think another, if I can just add, when you feel stuck, or you feel like kind of out of sorts, or it's like not enough, and you know there's something more, I think it's another signal that's starting to show you that what you've done, or who you've been, or who you be, is no longer in alignment. And a big piece of my work is helping people neutralize the emotional, like judgment, like right or wrong, or this is bad, or this doesn't work, or whatever, and just come into a question of, is it aligned or not aligned? Very simple, but
Yeah.
sometimes more difficult to figure out, right? But when we kind of feel the energy shift in ourselves, and it feels heavy, and it feels contracting instead of expansive, those are some of the signals I use to figure out, like, am I in alignment or misalignment? And that's what led me to, my uncoupling of my 22-year marriage, like 2 years ago, as of now, or almost 2 years. It wasn't about making it wrong. It wasn't about making him wrong. It wasn't about, yes, in the moment, in the heat of the moment, my ego was making all kinds of reasons, right? Like, let me justify myself. But ultimately, what I came to was like, wow, I've got 22 beautiful years, like not perfect, but just honored. And our contract's complete. It's complete. And when I asked, and so that means now I'm out of alignment. I'm just in a relation that's out of alignment with my next level of identity and my next level of ascension. And I believe, whether he does or not, I believe that's true for him too. Right? It was like, I knew at that moment that our contract together in that form, now we're friends, which is great, but I'm like, in that form was complete. And now it was time for us to be more individual and solo, and come back to our own energy to ascend. And so the ascension that's occurred, I think, I can speak for me, in this last year and a half, has been transformational, like unbelievable. And so I think we all just have to keep giving ourselves permission to be more and want more, and ascend up the elevator, like get to the next level. Because it's infinity. There's no
There's no arrival
or something. No, it's infinity levels. So
right.
yeah.
Okay, so you gave us a little bit of your story of transformation, but can you share about someone who you worked with that was able to really discover their ego, what was holding them back, and created something really strong in business or on the money side, since we're talking about women of wealth here?
Yeah. I put a little thought to this. Like one of my past clients, I think her story and her path, and recognizing why she came into my coaching space in the first place was, and her words were, she felt lost. She felt, like there was more, but she couldn't get to it. She felt, like she was not living into her highest self, all of that. And she was a doctor. She had gone to college, done the whole, doctor route, and then that ended abruptly from like a lawsuit of some sort. So there was a lot of shame and blame and pain around that. And then her value and her identity was attached to that past story. And so doing the work with her, we worked together for a couple of years, actually, not that it takes that long, but I just saw that she kept expanding all areas of her life. But that particular reason why she showed up, we worked on really quickly. And I just helped her see that, like, that actually happened for your benefit, because you were actually choosing to stay in the doctor role out of alignment. And I just offer this to everyone, is like, a lot of times if we don't catch the misalignment, life will take care of it.
Right.
You'll get fired. You'll, the business will end. Or I went bankrupt with my first business because I was out of alignment with it. It was like, oh, this isn't working. Okay, great. Shut those doors and go bankrupt. And so if I don't stay aware of my misalignment or not, then life will take care of it for us in some way. Sometimes not the prettiest way, but necessary. And so it really helped her to release the shame. That was the first step, as like we just talked about, was really letting go of all of the pain around it and the identity around it. And then she found herself and she started building her business. She's a farmer, and she started building with her husband and like stepping into a whole new role and homeschooling her children. Like, I mean, there was just this whole shift from being doctor to wife to mother to and then partner in the business, because her identity was so wrapped in like, well, who am I if I'm not a doctor, right? And then that was taken away from me, which it wasn't. It was removed because you knew, your unconscious self knew that it wasn't in alignment anymore. And it was a very transformational process. And then, you know, when she ended, it was just this beautiful testimony of like, I found myself. I started moving into, you know, the business in a bigger way, making, you know, and they added more money to their bottom line. I mean, all of that started to occur because she didn't hold herself as less than, or like not capable, or not in the right place. Like, she started to own her power. And I think that's a big piece of it. And, you know, and she would, I remember, because there was a lot of martyring. Like, the martyr likes to people please and give, and she kept giving all of her power and letting everybody else decide for her what she was doing and what she wanted to do. And that is a big shift when we stop doing things for other people, even inside marriages. Like, you know, find a way to coexist but still be individual, right? And I think that was a big shift for her as well. So the business went up, the relationships completely shifted and got better, right? The marriage, the children, she had teenagers, and all of that started to shift. And then she could let go of the story and the identity that said there was something wrong with her, because she wasn't a doctor anymore, and she didn't, you know, she failed, like, in some way. And that was a big piece, was letting go of the sense of failure. So yeah, I love seeing that happen.
Absolutely. Well, you know, yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit about that process then. Like, you teach clarity, success, and ease from healing, not hustling. What advice do you have for women who are burnt out but are afraid to slow down?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I did this. I know. I did this 2018. I burnt out myself. And I'll tell you this. What I learned is stillness is the best productivity tool ever. So when I burned out, and if somebody's sitting here and they're like, I can't do anymore. Like, I'm so over it. Like, I'm filled up. Then what's actually missing is the quiet. It is the stillness. And so when it happened to me, when I attracted that experience because of the misalignments, I got so committed to meditation on a daily basis. I meditated every single day. And what you find is, in the stillness, your ego actually can get louder in the moment, because the ego's like, what are we doing? Why are we getting quiet? We need to go do more. If we don't do more, we don't have more. If we don't do more, we don't make money. Like, the ego is the one that's actually running the show straight into burnout, because it doesn't know how to exist without it. And so when I got still and I got quiet and I started imagining different outcomes, I actually got more done and I made more money. I had one of the biggest months of my year in 2018, and I stopped everything. I stopped marketing. I just went and meditated in the morning. I'm not saying meditate and do nothing, but I'm saying you've got to quiet the noise, right? The noise is what's actually burning you out. The egoic noise is actually the burnout. It's the ignoring yourself. It's ignoring the signals. It's ignoring the misalignments that are saying, don't do this anymore. And the resistance is what's inside the burnout. So if you're pressing up against a wall, feel the pressure in your arms, feel the resistance that's occurring. And then there's, at some point, the muscle's going to give out. It's going to burn out. It's going to be like, I can't do this anymore. Have you ever done the squats that you lean up against the wall and squat?
Yeah.
I'm like, there's a point your muscles burn and you can't go any further. Yeah. That's what the ego's doing. The ego is keeping you spinning, thinking that's how it survives itself. And so I help people first get clear on the archetype they're running and the ego trips that are happening. tricks. And then we walk through the detachment method, which is the identifying what is the attachment that's having you continue the spin. Why are you driving yourself into the wall? Right. Because it's something emotionally that you do not want to experience.
Yeah. But in the end, you're experiencing it anyway. I mean, you're going through it, you're burnout, you're especially for women. It's like, I know for me, when I'm at my limit, it's like, that's when I cry I hardly ever cry, but like, that's when I cry the easiest. That's when I break down. That's when I like throw a fit. That's when I go back to being like the 8-year-old who, wants all the attention. Right. Because I'm to a point where all I can be is an 8-year-old because I'm too filled up with all this other stuff I've been doing.
Yeah.
So
you're ignoring the child, right? The child within. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think you and I could sit here for 3 more hours, but we're not going to do that. We're going to run into that. We're going to go into the lightning round. And then after the lightning round, I'd love for you to give your information so people can connect with you, take your quiz and, find out more about the work that you do on your website or whatever information you want to give. And we'll definitely make sure we get that in the show notes as well. Okay. So lightning round. Just like it sounds, just, one word or a couple word answer for whatever you think in this lightning round. All right, ready?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. Cash or credit?
Oh, credit. Other people's money.
Yeah, other people's money. Okay. Real estate or stocks?
Stocks. I'm a trader. I like both, but I'm in Forex, actually.
If you won $1 million today, what would be the first thing you'd do with the money?
Oh, yeah. I have a list of like 50 things. So like, which one?
Just give us the top couple.
I'm a traveler, so I would get on I'd hop a private jet and head to Bali or Dubai.
Okay. Awesome.
And bring a whole bunch of people with me.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll go on that Dubai trip or Bali. I've been to Bali before. I've never been to Dubai though.
I want to go to Dubai. Yeah, we'll say Dubai.
Let's do that. Dubai. All right. What's a fun impulsive buy that you've recently had?
Well, I just jumped into my own mentorship. I believe we should continue to have our own mentors. So that was, it felt impulsive from the sense of like, I just made a quick decision and jumped, right? That was pretty impulsive. And what was the other thing? Oh, there was something else, but I'll run with that. That's a big one. Oh, let me tell a quick story. Impulsive buy. Had to fly to Seattle in 2 hours at the very last minute. So bought the plane ticket, which I've never done, and like the same day ticket. And I booked it and got to the airport in 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Flew to Seattle from LA. And I'm like, that was a necessary buy, but I was like, it was highly impulsive.
Oh yeah.
For many good reasons. But I was like, holy cow, I've never done that in my life.
Getting to LAX in 45 minutes. That's like a feat right there.
Well, and this is the blessing, is I'm nomadic, right? I've been traveling all over the country, and I am house sitting in a house that happens to be 10 minutes from the airport. And I was an hour away at the other house before this one. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect timing. How would I have gotten there in time had I not been in this house? So yeah, it was like miracle, miracle, miracle all around.
What is one money saving tip that you swear by?
Money saving tip. Believe you don't have to save. Shift your perspective to everything is abundant, always taken care of, and circulation and allocation is actually more important. So, not saying don't accumulate and save it, like save, but it's shifting the mindset that you need to or have to in order to actually create more accumulation. Let go of the need.
Got it. That's great. What is your biggest financial fear?
Oh, I had so many. But I to be honest, it's been one of the, the kind of my life's journey is to break the scarcity pattern and the broke poverty pattern that I grew up in. I went from a middle class to a poverty in the divorce situation. So my identity was definitely like, oh, what is happening? So for many years, I was afraid of being homeless or being broke and not having enough money. And then bankruptcy was one of them, but I cleared that sucker by having one like 20 years ago. And honestly, it's been this last year where that fear has really dissipated, because I saw firsthand how Gus absolutely takes care of the money when you don't resist. And so I know I'm super resilient. I'm super capable. I'm super able to do all the things that I would be inspired to do that would not even result in that outcome to this day. But I will tell you, I definitely lived with that fear, because it came true many times in my childhood. We were evicted. We were food stamps. We were like, where's it coming from? And so that's where my survival mechanism came from. That's where my control, my perfectionism, all of the things that I've overcome with work and effort and healing. And so, yeah, that's the short, long answer.
What is your biggest financial goal for the next year?
Oh, yeah. $1 million in a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jena, how can, besides Instagram, I can see here, but not everybody will see this. So Instagram is but I am Jena Loren, ROLEN. And what else? How can people get to your quiz?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, jenaloren.com, and get to the quiz. It says it's right there in the middle of the page. Get your shift straight, take the quiz. And if you want a shortcut, you can go to quiz.bravemasters.com, which is my corporation name, quiz.bravemasters.com. So either way, website or direct.
Okay. Anything else you want to give them to get in touch with you? On your website, they can book what's it called?
Like a discovery call or contact.
Call, yeah.
And yes, and they can check out my membership, which is really exciting. The collective, like $44 to get coaching and support and learn about all of the ego archetypes and everything. I have a course inside of that. So that's a really affordable way to get support immediately. And you can check all of that out on the website as well, or through any links that you might give. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. It's been a great conversation, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully soon.
Yes, please. I appreciate it. Thank you.